You're welcome to the second day of. So quickly, I want to make a recap of the speaking. Yesterday, we said the speaking is divided into 3 segments or 3 sections or 3 parts. Section 1, we have the part 1, which is the familiar questions, which is questions I said you do not have to blink an eye. You do not necessarily need to blink an eye to understand or to reply them or to respond to them. That is what we said about the part 1. There are questions that you are ordinarily familiar with. Then the next one is what we call the cue card questions. Now, the cue card questions, these are questions that on a normal day, you are given a cue card. These are questions that you are given a cue card and then you are asked to speak on the topic of this cue card. You are asked to speak on the topic of this cue card. So that is one. And then in that cue card, there are a few things you need to pay attention to. I think I made mention of paying attention to the PPF formula in the video, which I said I was going to send a link to, but I didn't remember to do that. So I'll definitely do that after recording this video. So that is about that from yesterday. So let's go into today's session. First of all, the first thing we have to the first thing we need to look at today, or what we need to look at today, is the listening aspect of the IELTS test. Now, the International English Language Testing System, or IELTS for short, we mentioned earlier, it's divided into 4 parts. We have the speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Those are the 4 parts in which it is divided into. Now, each one of these is a separate exam that checks a different aspect of language, of your understanding of the English language. I think I mentioned this earlier. Now, the listening basically checks your ability, or the listening test checks the test taker's ability to understand main ideas and detailed factual information. How well are you able to understand these main ideas and then detail them, or understand these main ideas in detail? Then, number 2, it checks your understanding of opinions of speakers, as well as their attitude during each speech. Checks the purpose of your understanding of the purpose of an utterance. Checks your understanding of the purpose of an utterance. Then, finally, it checks your ability to follow the development of ideas, or of an idea. Checks your ability to be able to follow the development of an idea. Now, this is one thing that happens. In the listening test, they know you are not deaf. Sorry to say that, but they know you're not deaf. They just want to check you how well you are able to put into perspective what you hear when you're spoken to. That is what the listening test checks you on. That is what the listening test checks you on. I don't know if this makes sense to anyone, but basically, that is what the listening test checks you on. That is one of the major things. Then this listening test is divided into several segments. It is segmented. It is a segmented test. What do I mean by a segmented test? It is divided into several parts. The first part is the section 1, which is a conversation between two people on social everyday context. For example, booking a hotel or making an inquiry. These are everyday things. Somehow people book hotels every day. They make inquiries about reservation every day. So these are simply conversations about these things. So that is one. Then section 2 is a monologue. That is to say, one person talking. There could be two, but one person is doing the main talk and the other is listening. So it's a monologue basically about a local facility. Maybe you went for an excursion. The tour guide is now taking you around. That is what this section 2 focuses on. Then section 3, this section contains a conversation between up to 4 people set in an academic context. That is to say, a university student and is a university tutor and a lecturer and a student discussing an assignment. Or 2 or more students discussing a coursework. That is about the section 3. There are always more than one person. Most times, it usually takes up to 4 people, could be up to 4, that are discussing here. I said the listening test, the section 3, is usually between up to 4 people talking. It could be between 2 people, and it could be between 4 people. Could be between 3 people as well. So it's usually between up to 4 people discussing in this context. Then finally, section 4, this is a monologue. This is basically a monologue about an academic subject, maybe a lecture on the history of tomatoes or an academic speech on the social relevance of a place. So that is the segmentation of this test, or that is the segments into which this listening test is divided into. Now, before we go into basics speaking techniques, I will take a break. So quickly, let's look at the segments we've looked at the segments of the listening. So let's quickly look at the others. That is basic tips on listening. Okay, so basically in the listening test, right, there is one thing in the listening and in the reading, there is one thing that would help you. And that thing is called the keyword strategy. I'll explain that in a bit. But okay, let me explain it before I even continue. Now, the keyword strategy basically is what you need, right? The keyword strategy helps you select those words that you think they are definitely going to mention. That is those words that they must mention. You pay attention to those words that when they are talking, when the audio is playing, you must definitely hear them. Now, that is the keyword strategy. And in the keyword strategy, it entails you underlining and preempting what they are going to say. It's very important. That preempting is very important in this aspect of the test. It is in fact, it is as important as the listening test in itself. Preempting the listening test, preempting what you need to hear, is as important as the test in itself. So you have to pay attention to these keywords. Now, someone would ask, how do you find keywords? What are those important words that you see that they must mention, that you feel, okay, without this word, this sentence is incomplete? That is a keyword. Without this sentence, without this word in this sentence doesn't seem to make sense. That is a keyword. For instance, if you look at that first line, that is this first line in bold, that's this first line. If you look at it, they said, read the question first. So if I said, read the first, doesn't make any sense. Or the question first, does it make any sense to you? No, I guess it doesn't. So that is what we mean by understand keywords. Select those words that without them, the sentence is incomplete. That is a keyword. So what are the basic listening tips that you need to know? Number one, the first thing is read the question first. This allows you to have a picture of what the audio will be about. That is one. And it also allows you to select and underline keywords. Now, I just told us what keywords are. It allows us to select and underline keywords. Now, reading the question first, before the audio starts, look at the question. If the audio will definitely pause and tell you to look at questions 1 to a definite number, look at those questions and underline keywords from those questions at that given opportunity. The audio will always tell you to look at so question, but in paragraph in section 4, it will not stop. So you have to look at those questions one after the other and underline the keywords, and then expect to hear those keywords in the audio. So read the question first. This allows you to have a picture. In fact, not read, skim through the question first. So let me correct this. Let me quickly correct it. Skim through. So I guess that makes more sense. Skim through the question first, because you don't have time to read. You don't have all the time. They could give you around 10 seconds to 30 seconds. So skim through the question first. This allows you to have a picture of what the audio will be about, and also allows you to select and underline keywords. So the second tip we would need to look at is to listen for keywords. I said to listen for keywords and signposts, and use signposts and headings. That's another tip. Listen for keywords and use signposts and headings. Now, I would explain signposts and headings. I have already explained what keywords are, so I would explain signposts and headings right now. Now, from what is written here, you can see it on your screen. It says, look at your question booklet. You see these headings that indicate the different parts that are being talked about. You see these headings that indicate the different parts that are being talked about. Now, in your listening test, at every point in your listening test, there are always headings that indicate the different parts. When they are heading to a different part, there's usually a heading for it. Now, if you had been practicing the listening, you will see that there's always a heading going for each part. They are mostly common. Then what are signposts? Signposts, they said this usually tell us of what is coming next. Yes, most times in the exams, you'd hear the examiner saying something like, sorry, the people discussing in the audio saying something like, oh, can we talk about, let's talk about, or I'll be examining, or for instance, or in addition, or as well as this, or on the other hand, or on the one hand, things like that. These are usually signposts. They give you signal, they go ahead to tell you that something is coming next. And then the good thing about this signpost is they usually indicate an oncoming answer. Sorry, an oncoming answer. Sorry, I wrote upcoming there. Usually indicate an oncoming answer. Unfortunately, these signposts, they are found almost everywhere. If you put your eye down for signposts, you definitely find this signpost almost everywhere in the listening test. Then another thing is to make notes while you listen. When the audio starts playing, it's simple. Write down your answers. That is what we mean by make notes. Now, remember that you have already selected your keywords that you would need, right? You've already selected them. So now, those keywords, you're simply going to fill in your answer, not in the answer booklets this time, but you are writing it down to make sure that the grammar is grammatically correct or it's grammatically related to what you would be discussing or to what is being said in the question paper. Write it down on the question paper. Nobody will penalize you for that. Write it down on the question paper and check if it is grammatically correct before you will now transfer. That is what we simply mean by make notes while you listen. Then the next thing they said, adhere to what counts. Now this is where many people have a problem, but I'm coming to that instance. Where many people have a problem is they could tell them, okay, write no more than one word. And then in the audio, they heard the train. And the instruction was write no more than one word. Now, if you write the train, that will be 2 words. So writing 2 words in a place you're supposed to write not more than 1 word, you've already failed it. Usually I tell people that even if you wrote 1.5 word, if there's anything like a half word, in a place you're supposed to write 1 word, then you have failed that particular answer. You've gotten it wrongly. Let me not use the word failed. You've gotten it wrongly. Now, there's another kind of example that many people would meet. Let me quickly add that here. They would usually say, write no more than write no more than 2 words. Sorry, 2 words and or a number. I discovered that many of my students have issues with this kind of instruction. Write no more than 2 words and or a number. Write no more than 2 words and or a number. This simply means one thing. You can either have 2 words or 2 words and a number, or simply a number. Now this means 3 things. You can either have 2 words and a number, or just a number. That is the 3 interpretation you can give to this. Okay, so if in the audio you heard today's date, what's today's date? 5th May 2022 rather. Some people will be tempted to write 5th May 2022 in words. Trust me, that is wrong. But if you write 5th in words, May in words, 2022 in numbers, 2022 in numbers, then it is correct. Or if you write 05/05/2022, it is still correct. So please adhere to word count. Then finally, cross-check your answers. Cross-check your answers. Cross-checking your answers mean a lot in the listening test. It means a lot in the listening test. Reason being that you have written your answer on your question paper. Check for the grammatic correctness. I made mention of this earlier. Check for the grammatic correctness of your answers before transferring them to the answer sheet, which is the final document you're going to submit, or rather, which is the final document that the examiners pay attention to. Cross-check your answers before sending it there, before transferring it there. Now you'll be given 10 minutes. So that 10 minutes is enough for you to transfer 120 answers you've gotten correctly to your answer sheet. So you can always cross-check your, your answers before you transfer them to the answer sheet. Then the last thing we'll look at today, the last slide we'll look at today is types of listening question or categories of listening question. Types or categories. Or categories of listening questions. Now, the listening questions are usually categorized into 6 categories. I'll just list them here. I would not explain them. I would explain them in a subsequent video, which will not be for this class. That will be for a paid class. So let's move on. The 6 categories are multiple choice question, matching, map, plan. The 6 categories are multiple choice questions. That's 1. The other is matching. And the third is plan, map, and diagram completion. The 4th is form, notes, table, flowchart, and summary completion. Then the 5th is sentence completion. And the 6th is the short answer questions. So all these categories definitely would appear in your speaking. If some of them did not appear, then you're lucky. Mostly though, you could either see a diagram or you could not see anything relating to this third one at all. So basically, there are things you simply need to pay attention to here when completing these questions. We'll discuss them in the paid class. So with this, we would call it a day for today.